Alright, you're welcome to today's class. We'll be looking at quadratic equation, but I'm going to introduce to you the science genius. When we talk about science genius, if you can see science working with hands and feet, this guy is a science genius. I call him Dr. Professor. So I'll call him to the board. You're welcome, sir. Dr. Professor Emmanuel Okoli. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Okay, just like you said, we're going to look at quadratic equation. And then I believe that you've heard about quadratic equation before. Now, quadratic equation is is simply algebra. Now, it's an algebraic equation. When we talk about algebra, we seem as if we are talking about combination of numbers and alphabet. For example, when you see something like this in mathematics, you see something like 6a plus b. Whenever you begin to see alphabet and then you are seeing numerical digits, that speaks of algebra. Then we have algebraic equation and algebraic expression. Now, quadratic equation is an example of an algebraic equation. But what's so peculiar about algebraic equation that makes them to treat it special amongst other algebraic equations is that algebraic equation has the highest power of the unknown as power 2, and then it has a monomial, and then it has a constant, and then the value of all quadratic equation is always said to be equated to 0. Now let's look at the format of an algebraic equation or a quadratic equation. I mean to say, we have ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0. Now this is the format of all quadratic equations. We use this as the format because this particular man that has x squared is expressing the quadratic as a function. It's expressing the quadratic. It has the highest power as power 2. And then it has another unknown that the power is 1. This one is power 1. And then this man does not have an unknown attached to it. We call it a constant. And all of them are equating to 0. And one thing that is very important that we should note in quadratic equation is that for the fact, in fact, in all algebraic equations, for the fact that you have the highest power of your unknown as power 2, tells you that what you are seeking to find or what you are looking for, the value of the unknown is going to be 2 digits, it's going to be 2 answers. And then if, for example, this is power 3 or power 2 above, 3 or 4, then you're going to be having, if it is power 3, you have 3 answers. Probably. That's why we're going to treat that one under polynomial. But under quadratic equation, we are simply going to find for the value of the unknown. For example, if you are given an equation, definitely you need to find for the value of the unknown. Now in quadratic equation, we are looking for a way whereby we can be able to find for the value of the unknown in an equation whereby there is a square and then we also have a monomial with a symbol and with a constant, and then their answers are equating to 0. Let's look at questions you can see on quadratic equation. Or before we move into the questions on quadratic equation, let's look at this. Now, what does this A signify? The A signifies the coefficient of the quadratic. The B signifies the coefficient of the monomial, that is the power of 1, and then C simplifies the constant, the one that does not have any unknown attached to it, and all of them are equated to 0. Example, let's look at the example number 1. We have something like 5, okay, let's use x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equals to 0. Now this is a typical example of a quadratic equation, and then it's simple. What you need to do is that you want to find for the value of x, and then in every quadratic equation, like I said, we're going to have 2 answers, and then in quadratic equation we have many approaches of solving the quadratic equation. The most easy go-through way, which most of us would have heard about or is more easier to use, is the factorization method. You can either use the factorization method, that will bring out the factors, factorization method, We can either use factorization method. We have another method, the completing the square method. Completing the square. We have the completing the square method, and then we also have the formula method. We have the formula method using a general quadratic formula to solve quadratic equation. That's the formula method. Most of us call that formula the almighty formula, although the name of the formula is the quadratic formula. And then lastly, we can use a graph or the graphical method. We can use a graph to illustrate, to find for the values of the unknowns in the quadratic equation. Now, I'm going to start with the first one. For this edition, we're going to talk about factorization and completing the square. Or let's say we'll just speak about factorization alone. In this edition, we'll just talk about factorization method. Maybe in the next edition, we'll talk about completing the square method, how to solve quadratic equation using completing the square method. For now, let's simply move into factorization method. Now, how do we solve quadratic equation? I will repeat this. Okay. Now, how do we solve quadratic equation using factorization method? It's simple. To solve quadratic equation using factorization method, one of the first things you are going to bear in mind, or I like keeping that, you bear in mind that two things, very, very important. Let's see this 5x, or the man in the center, or the one that has a monomial, as the sum, something you are summing, and then let's see the constant as a product. So we are looking at it as a rough sketch. Now let's look at this man as the sum, and then this man as a product. So we have as if 5x is our sum, and then our 6 is our product. Don't mind me. The reason why I like bringing these two apart is that it makes it easier for students to be able to follow through or to remember. Now, why did I say sum and product? Now, one thing is we are going to do is that we are going to find for, like we said, we are learning under factorization method. Okay, let me write it down. This is factorization method. We are learning under factorization method. Factorization method. Now, under factorization method, we are going to first of all have to find for the factors of the constant. That's the first thing to do. After doing this thing, the sum and the product, we find for the factorization, the factors of the product. Like I said, remember I told you that we should assume the constant as the product. Now, finding for the factors of the product, we have what are the possible factors of 6. The possible factors of 6 is first of all 6 and 1, and then we also have 3 and 2. Now, these are the possible factors of 6. That is, 6 times 1 will give us 6, 3 times 2 is also going to give us 6. And then we are going to look for a general stuff or a general combination between these two factors that can give us the sum. What do I mean? We are looking for how we can join each of the factors to get the value of the sum. So we want to sum up the factors and get this value. That was why I said we should assume it as the sum. So we are trying to get the sum from the addition of the both of them or combination of the both of them. I will explain what I'm trying to say. Now, in these factors, I have 6 and 1. Of course, if I say 6 minus 1, I'm going to have 5. If I say 6 minus 1 or plus 6 minus 1, I'm going to have 5. If I say 3 minus 2 plus 3 minus 2, I'm going to have 1. If I say plus 3 plus 3 plus 2, I'll have what? Plus 5. And then if I say minus 6 minus 1, I'll also have what now? I'll have minus 7. So looking at what we have here, you find out that if we use 6 minus 1, we have plus 5. And then if we also use plus 3 plus 2, we are also going to have plus 5. So one thing that will come to our mind is that we can either use any of these two as our factors to solve. We can either use any of these two as our factors to solve, because the combination of both of them is going to give us the one we decided to call our sum in the question today. So if I go for the second one, for instance, I will have plus 3 and what? and plus 2. Now these are the two factors I'm bringing out from the product. Now, how do I now put it into solving in the quadratic equation? Now, since we said that the addition of the both of them is going to give us the sum, so we are going to use these values to replace the sum instead of writing the sum directly. So we have something like x squared plus, instead of writing 5x, I can go ahead and now replace them with these values. I will have something like, I will have 3x plus 2x. Of course, both of them, 3x plus 2x. Of course, both of them is going to give us 5x. Then plus 6, all of them is equating to what? To 0. And then the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to group them in two sections. We are going to draw a bracket in the first side, and then you draw a bracket in the second side. Now you are trying to segregate the both of them. Now the next thing you are going to do is that we are going to find out, we are not trying to bring out the factors between the both of them, what they have in common. Now in the first bracket, we notice something. What we notice in the first bracket is that they have something in common. So we want to factor out what they have in common. Remember, we are solving using factorization method. The two things that these values have together have in common is x. Both of them have x. So we have, if we bring out that which they have in common, x, we open the bracket. Now, x squared divided by x is going to give us x, plus 3x divided by x is going to give us 3. And then let's look at what these two also have in common. They have 2 in common. That means 2 can divide 2x and 2 can also divide 6. So if we bring out 2, not just 2, but plus 2, because the sign between the both of them is plus. So we have plus 2 opening a bracket. 2x divided by 2, x is remaining. And then 6 divided by 2, we have plus 3. Finally, all of them is equals to what? 0. Now, when you reach to this point, and then the two brackets are the same in quadratic equation, you cancel out 1. And when you cancel out 1, you bring out those values, the value that is multiplying, those values that were the factors of the both of them. So what I'm trying to say is, you bring out the factors. You have something like, this is x and this is plus 2. You have x plus 2 multiplied by what? X plus 3. All of them is equating to what? To 0. You are almost there to your final answer. When you reach to this stage in quadratic equation, you just need to finish up. Now, in this particular point, how do you get your final answer? When you reach to this point, you are now asked a question. Two brackets is multiplying themselves to give you 0. And in mathematics, what are the possibilities that two values will multiply themselves to get 0? For the fact that you are going to get 0 in mathematics, one of the values must be 0. In mathematics, you can never multiply two numbers and get 0 unless one of those two numbers is 0 already. So when you say two brackets is multiplying themselves to give you 0, it tells us that one of the brackets must be equal to 0, and we don't know which one. So we are going to assume, we are going to say something like this. We are going to say that x plus 2 is equal to 0, or we have x plus 3 is equal to 0. Are you seeing it now? So is either x plus 2 is equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. In summary or in finishing, we now have x plus 2. If x plus 2, if f plus 2 is equal to 0, what's the value of x? Then x is equal to minus 2. Then if x plus 3 is equal to 0, we find out that the value of x now becomes minus 3. Now we are done solving the quadratic equation. We find out that the value of x is now equal to what? Minus 2 or minus 3. Like I said earlier, the final answer of the quadratic equation used to have two factors or two values. Now, in this quadratic equation, this is the factors, or these are the roots of the equation. Some questions might tell you to find the root of the equation. These are the roots of the quadratic equation. Now, let's take a look at another question. And then we'll look at another aspect on how they can ask the quadratic equation. Let's look at something like we have x squared plus 8x plus 15 is equals to 0. We have x squared plus 8x plus 15 is equals to 0. Now, how do we solve this? How do we solve it? Remember, I said we are going to assume that this is our sum and then this is our what? Our product. Now, after assuming that the both of them is sum and product, we bring out the factors of the product. And this factors of the product, which is 15, we have 15 and 1, that is 15 times 1, and then 5 and 3. And from this, you find out that what combination will give you 8. Simply, you can say this particular one is the one we are going to choose because 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3 is going to give us 8. So, we are going to use this to represent our sum. So, in the equation we have x squared plus, instead of putting 8x, I have 5x plus 3x plus 5x plus 15 is equals to what? Is equals to 0. And then I group this into 2. Now, after grouping, the next thing is to find out what they both have in common. Now, I want to factorize what they have in common. They have x in common. Open brackets, x that they have in common. X squared divided by x is x. Then plus 3x divided by x is 3. And then what do these two have together have in common? They have plus 5 in common. So we have plus 5. Opening the bracket. 5x divided by 5 is giving us x. Plus 15 divided by 5 is giving us 3. And all of them is equals to 0. Now remember, I said when the bracket are the same, you slash 1 and then bring out what you have outside. You have x plus 5, put them in the bracket, and then you have x plus 3. They are all equals to 0. Now 2 brackets is equated to 0. What is the value of x? Now you now see, since both of them is equated to 0, one of them must be either one of them is either equated to 0. We have x plus 5 is equals to 0, or x plus 3 is equals to 0. So if x plus 5 is equal to 0, x is equals to minus 5. If x minus plus 3 is equals to 0, x is equals to minus 3. Now for those asking how I got my minus 3, this is negative 3 plus positive 3. When positive 3 crosses the equals to sign, it becomes negative 3. This is positive 5. When positive 5 crosses the equals to, it becomes negative 5. And then we're going to look at the last idea on quadratic equation, and then before we close for the class, because the next class we're going to talk about solving such questions like these using completing the square. Now let's look at another idea on factorization method. Now, you can have such a question like this in factorization method. You have number 3 now. You have something like 2x squared plus 8x plus 7 plus 7x plus 14 Okay, let's look at this equation. We have 2x squared plus 7x plus 12 is equals to 0. And you are asked to find the values of x. Now, in solving this kind of question, I want to shift the questions. Let me shift this. Okay, let's have this. So we have 2x squared plus 9x plus 7 is equals to 0. Now, how do we solve this? Now, from what we've been solving so far, you'll notice something. The other two questions we solved, the coefficient of the quadratic is 1. When I mean the quadratic, this is the quadratic, this one that is x squared. Now, the coefficient has always been 1. And because of that, we've not been paying attention to it, but I think it's a high time we paid attention to it, because it's very, very important. Now, when the coefficient of the quadratic is affected, something happens. The coefficient of the quadratic is not just affecting the quadratic itself, but it should also affect the constant when it comes to factorization method. Now, like I said earlier, the first thing to do is to make this man the sum. Assume this is your sum, and assume this is your product. But there's another thing again we're going to do. What we're going to do is that in the other step, we would have just gone straight and find for the factors of 7. But in this place, we will not do likewise. What we are going to do is that we are going to multiply these 2 by 7. So instead of finding for the factors of 7, we are going to find for the factors of 2 times 7, which is what? 14. So we are going to be finding for the factor of 14. And what are the factors of 14? We have 14 and 1, and then we also have 7 and 2. Now these are the possible factors of 14. 14 multiplied by 1, 14, 7 times 2, 14. And then which of the combination will give us 9? Of course, is this. Then we have 7 plus 7 plus 2 is going to give us what? 9 plus 9. So we are going to use this as our sum. So in replacing the value of 9 over there, instead of writing 9x, we have 2x squared plus 7x plus 2x plus 7 is equals to plus 2x plus 7x plus 7 is equals to 0. Now, we group the bracket into 2. After grouping the bracket into 2, we need to find out what they have in common, or their factor. Now, what does these two values have in common? Both of them has 2x in common. So when we bring out 2x that they have in common, we open the bracket. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared divided by x, we have x. So 2x squared divided by 2x is going to give us x, plus then 2x divided by 2x is going to give us 1. We close our bracket. Now what does these two have in common? They only have one thing in common, and that's 7. So we have plus 7, open a bracket. What they have in common is 7. 7x divided by 7 is going to give us x, plus 7 divided by 7 is giving us 1. And all of them is equating to what? 0. Now, like I said, when the bracket are the same, you cancel out 1 and then bring out what they have, the values outside. You have 2x plus 7. And then we have x plus 1. All equals to 0. In finishing, we have 2x, in summary, 2x plus 7 is equals to 0. Or x plus 1 is equals to what? 0. Then we have 2x is equals to 7 is equals to minus 7, or x is equals to minus 1. We are done with this side. How do we finish this side? What's the value of x? X now becomes minus 7 divided by 2, because we have to divide this side by the coefficient of x, which is 2. And then finally we have that x is equals to, let me bring it on a smooth page. We have that x is equals to minus 7 over 2, or x is equals to minus 1. These are the two values for x in this quadratic equation. Now, the next time we're going to talk about solving this same kind of issues using the completing the square method. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you very much for the class. We hope to see your questions on the comment section. We hope also to see other relevant topics you want us to assist you with. The professor is always here to assist you. You drop your question, maybe your question on this or any other topic, you drop it. We are ready to assist you in no distant time. See you soon. Bye.
Very nice.